Big number changes this week. I'm going to answer a viewer question, or actually a statement. And we'll go to the big blue book of knowledge, randomly spin the dial, and I'm going to talk about whatever page it lands on today's Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. So you may be wondering, no, that was not a mistake on the title screen and whatnot. It's just that asterisk is the best way to describe this episode. Hi, my name is Charles Ray Dawson. I am the residential sales manager and associate broker for ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, and this is episode 68. So, as I talked on the teaser and everything like that, yeah, this is an asterisk kind of day, and I want to show that to you. And the reason why I use the term asterisk is because, you know, in history books and whatnot, if there's anything, of note, especially in big tables of numbers, it's like, hey, yeah, this person won the Super Bowl, asterisk, they cheated, whatever. This is not a cheat kind of thing, but I really want to sort of delineate that, hey, some really interesting things happened this week, and I need to talk about that first. And later on, I saw a video on Facebook from one of the real estate sites that I follow, and it was an agent, pretty much same experience as mine and everything, just sort of lamenting everything that she missed about the old school selling real estate, how she missed, negotiating, she looking at a house with knowing that the buyer actually had a chance to buy the house, and it was relatively wistful and whatnot, and I retweeted it on my personal Facebook page with a hashtag Kindred Soul. And I got a response from one of my friends on Facebook, and it was sort of wistful and disconcerting, and I really wanted to respond to it. So I figured this would be the best place as any. So let's start with the numbers, because that will lead into the conversation and everything. Okay, these are the numbers for May 18th, 2022. Actives this week are 7,804. That is up 842 from the previous week. And of that 7,804, 3,032 of them are brand new listings just hitting the market this week, which is up 184 from the previous week. Our under contracts looking for backups are 1,048, which is up 9. Our pendings are at 1,775, which is up 19. Contracts with a buyer's contingency are at 112. All right. And our closings are at 1,978. So we got some really big ticket items on this that I want to show you. Once again, this is the prepared slide that I do for you guys so you can see the numbers. And so it's easier. This is the slide over here that I look at everything on. Right. And once again, for people who have not seen this thing before, this is a spreadsheet I started all the way back on the 16th of March in 2020. Because I was going into a negotiation after we had a bad appraisal, and I wanted some firepower on my side to, when I was negotiating with the other agent, going, hey, dude, you do not want to put this house back on the market. Just accept what we're offering you. And yes, they accepted the offer. Owners still love the house. Yay, team. So I started running these numbers, and just because this March 16th is the day before St. Patrick's Day back in 2020. This is back when COVID was just really, really starting to hit. I mean, some of us were paying attention back in November and buying up all the toilet paper, but the news itself actually suddenly was made aware about this time period. And you saw a whole bunch of houses get dumped back on the market as buyers pulled out. Right. So we went through this time period and we hit this spike area. Sorry about that phone call. Actually glad I took it. Gentleman I talked to maybe 6-7 years ago about another property, suddenly decides he wants to buy one of his own and is reaching out to me. So first-time home buyers for the win. And let's talk about first-time home buyers, right? So I can't really remember where we're at in this, but I was sitting there and I was discussing how, these numbers we've been tracking for a while. We hit a peak while I've been tracking these numbers of, 14,643. And that was in April, soon after, the COVID started. And that was, people are panicking. Second home buyers are selling their second houses. Various agencies are pulling out of contracts. And then we started working our way right back down. And ever since then, we just have not, I mean, even at 14, when we should be at 20, all right, that's still only, 70% of the inventory we should have been showing at the time and should be showing today. And it starts working its way back down. So when I started the podcast, I started tracking all the other numbers. That's when I started that the page and everything that I show you, with these numbers here. And, so I started tracking the new listings coming on and the pending listings coming on and under contract and so on and so forth. And I track some other things that I don't actually report to you guys on. Back on markets I track. And when a date comes up or a number comes up that's significant, I sort of mark it. All right. You can see here in March, and this is back in 2021. All right. March 24th, we hit a bottom of 3,938 active listings. And for those who are out there on the market at this time or, shopping around, that was a really bad time to be looking for property. Wow. That was the absolute worst. And we've been steadily improving ever since. So last week, you might remember I mentioned that we had the biggest delta jump, all right, the different change in listings from listings to listings that, I'd seen yet, all right, because we had just maxed out ourselves out there. We had crossed over to 6,962 new listings, and it was the change I was talking about, right? 736. That's the biggest that we've ever seen in the last, that since I've been tracking this, because I have been tracking the changes all the way back to 2020. So, and all these numbers, I mean, we've seen a lot of red, okay, but we've never seen a jump that much in active listings. All right. This week we broke that. All right. We set the new Delta record of 736 in 1 week change, and now we're at 842. And part of that is last week we got the most new listings since I started tracking the new listings going back to February 3rd. Now, of course, as soon as you put an asterisk in, it breaks your spreadsheet and everything like that. But if I take that off, all right, you can see that's only 184 more than the week before, but it's still a new record for us. And that the week before that might have been a new record, but I wasn't tracking that. And the other one I wanted to point out to you, I'm going to move myself over here, is contracts with buyer contingency. We're at 112 now, biggest number we've seen on those things. And listings coming soon at 1,272. That's the highest amount of new listings we've seen projected on. All right. And remember, just because it's saying coming soon does not mean it's actually not all active listings come from coming soon. And not all coming soon listings go to active before they go right over to pending and everything. But, serious, changes. The market it's definitely not slowing down. All right. But there is a lot of national news about mortgage applications going down. There are certain locations and areas that is definitely slowing down in. But ultimately, guys, remember, everything here that we're discussing is predicated. All right. Think of these are the raw numbers. This is the consolidated numbers of what we come up with. All right. We have 98.8 for demand, people looking for houses. All right. The average on that should be 100. They weight the average, so 100 always maintains the constant. All right. We actually have slightly less people looking for houses right now. All right. But not enough to be significant. The significant number, once again, is, supply, even though as we see it moving up, is still at 30.2. But remember, that was what, 27 last week? All right. So what do we have? All right. We have demand starting to creep down, driven by interest rates. All right. We have supply starting to move up, not by houses staying on the market and taking longer to sell, but more and more people deciding to suddenly sell their house. We have second home buyers second home owners who are deciding to cash out. Right. We have people who have been mentally waiting for the top of the market. All right, and suddenly decided, it's the top of the market. I need to sell. Okay, I'm not going to say the P word or anything like that, but we have more people interested in selling right now, right? Being driven by what they perceive is coming down the pike. And they're finally deciding to call the real estate agent up and go, hey, let's unload some of these things. Right? So, is it going to be a crash? No, it's not a crash yet. None of these numbers show a crash happening. Remember what we see before we see a crash. We see these two numbers invert. All right. Supply needs to be higher than demand for even the market to quit appreciating. Right? Markets, even a buyer's market, even in a soft buyer's market, and especially in a balanced market, still appreciates at the rate of inflation, right? Which is 8 and change right now. Right. So if somebody wanted to sit there and say, hey, Ray, what's the lowest number you guarantee I will, my house will appreciate with? I will say 8 and change. Right. Unless all of a sudden inflation goes away. And there is nobody out there who is saying this inflation that we're seeing right now is going to go away. So you're always going to be looking at least 8%. So, but the 22, the 24% that we've been seeing year over year, we're going to see that start slowing down. I think I remember that beginning of this year, I called it that our annual appreciation would be about the 12s, right? And I was being super, super conservative on that. Yeah, we're still going to at least see that, all right? But just remember, beginning of this year, I also said interest rates were going to climb up into the 4s, and we're at 5.5 right now, right? We flirted with 6, and then we're backing down a little bit. So that covers our numbers, and that leads us directly to this gentleman who responded to this video that I posted. And I'm not going to give his name away or anything like that, but any of my friends who are watching this, or also my friend's Facebook page, knows what's going on. And young gentleman I know, he has graduated from college, got himself a decent degree, all right, and he moved to Portland, Oregon, and now he's working his job with, in Portland, Oregon. As near as I can tell, his finances are probably very strong. I don't think he has any student loan debt or anything, but if he does, he's got it covered. Right? And so when I posted that video about this agent going, how I missed the old market, all right, his response was, yeah, all right. And I didn't actually ask him if I could read this out, but hey, he put it on Facebook, so it's public anyways. All right. For real, the markets have been so bad that I know plenty of people my age who are starting to give up on the idea of ever affording even a simple starter home. Hell, I'm doing really well financially for my age, and I'm still not sure whether I will be able to afford a down payment that won't come with mortgage insurance attached. Hence why I'm not shopping for a house right now. The idea that a lot of people like me might be stuck just being perpetual renters, those of us who are lucky enough to not be in danger of poverty-stricken homelessness anyways, is a really depressing prospect. Part of me hopes that the housing market does crash. At least then a decent house wouldn't be out of reach anymore. So, move out of the blue states. That was literally the first thing that popped in my mind. It's like, dude, you were living in freaking Portland, Oregon, WTF. All right. The blue states are notoriously not designed for people to be able to buy houses in. All right. So I could go on a big rant about zoning and this and that and the other thing and all this other stuff. Right. But if you are in a blue state, it is infinitely harder for you to buy a house. Right. A lot of it is just simply NIMBY. I don't want you to, I got my views. I got my McMansion with my views, and I don't want you building a 3-story apartment complex or condo complex where I can see it. All right. So as soon as people get in there, they lock the gates behind them. All right. So that's part of it. All right. It comes down to this whole supply issue I'm showing you here. All right. 30.2. We do not have enough houses. All right. Heard a number yesterday. Across the entire country, we are still 1.5 million houses short. All right. And why did that happen? It's because when the crash happened, we had a surplus of housing. Right? That was one of the main things about the crash, right? That we do not have in place today. We had more houses than we knew what to do with. Right? And when there's more houses than we knew what to do with, didn't sell, the people, or couldn't get rented, the people who owned them lost their ass. Right? Part of the reasons for the crash, right? Since then, though, housing stopped being built. All right, and it was because hold on, let me pull the chart. Here we go. I knew I had it somewhere in here. All right, why do we have a housing shortage? Right, because we were building more houses. The red line is how many new houses being built, all right, as a percentage of all housing. All right, we were building more houses, and we had less people coming in, and eventually you have more houses than people. Then the crash happened. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. Remember, in 2006, that's when appreciation stopped. We hit this weird little balance market. We actually started moving into a housing, surplus on the market. All right, but they still kept building and finishing and completing houses and starting new ones. All right, all the way over to this point right here, halfway through 2009. Since then, we've been building less houses as the population of Maricopa County continues to increase by 1% to 2% a year. Meanwhile, we've been building 0.5% to 1.5%, and that problem is happening even more now. So how does this take care of our young man who's sitting there in Portland, Oregon, who wants to buy a house? The two other things popped up on this on me. Houses are being built. Houses are currently not being built as fast as we could be building them because the supply chains are all screwed up because of our immigration policies and everything like that. We do not have enough skilled labor, right? Listen to Mike Rowe on this one. We don't have enough people out there who know how to build a house. All right? And if you are in a blue state, the costs of building that house are much, much higher than any of the other states because of their individual zoning issues, their regulatory issues, even down to having to put the little frickin' GFI plugs in the kitchen, right? It used to be it had to be within 18 inches of the sink. Now, the new requirements are anywhere in the kitchen and all the garages. I mean, it's a $7 part as opposed to a $3 part, but these little things start adding up. Other thing with it when it comes down to zoning, right? People don't want poor people living around them. So they go out of their way to make sure poor people housing doesn't get built. Right? So if you have a zoning thing, it's saying, okay, and let's say you say one residential property for every 8,000 square feet, all right? That's one thing. But if I zone that neighborhood and everything for one for every 4,000 square feet, which is a tiny lot, that is going to be a tiny, tiny lot, right? And if you put a house on that thing, that's where you get the houses that are maybe, 5 feet apart from each other, right? This makes a difference because that means you can put half as many houses in as 8,000 feet as you can at 4,000 feet. The land you purchase in a block, you spend $15 million for 20 acres of land, right? You need to make that up on the outside when you're selling. If you have an 8,000 square foot lot requirement, well, guess what? Those houses are going to be spent, be a lot more expensive because you got to make up your costs in the land. Right. And that's, so watching neighborhood, the zoning issues, these things matter and these things count. Right. You also mentioned on here, young man, you sweet summer child, about mortgage insurance. All right. Mortgage insurance is a thing, and you do have to pay mortgage insurance on top of your mortgage payment if you have less than 20% equity in it. I've had two different buyers that we've had to calculate mortgage interest payments on the fly. Neither one of them came to over $100 a month. Right? In fact, generally they were at about $80 to $90 extra a month. And if you put off, just picture this, right? If you put off buying a house until you get your 20% down, while your neighborhood is appreciating at 20% a year, right? Are you ever going to catch that rabbit? Right? No, you're never going to catch the rabbit, right? Because you need to save 20%, right? And let's break the math down. You want to buy a $100,000 house. You want $20,000 down to put 20% on, right? How you are saving up $5,000 a year for that 20%. You should be able to buy in 4 years. But remember, that house is getting more expensive every year. Right. So you save up, your $5,000, right? but that house is no longer worth or no longer selling for 100,000. Now it's selling for 120. Right? So now you need 20% of that. Now you need $24,000. Right? Now you have 5. Right? You save another 5. Now you're at 10, and that 120. You see how that works out? It's turtles all the way down. Right? So you can get yourself in a lot of hurt. Right? When you're missing out on the appreciation that's going up like that. And that's a very, very, very common thing that people go. They're trying to avoid that short-term hit, all right, and not realizing that those houses are just keeping up. And interest rates, right? We're never going to see the 2s again, all right? I seriously doubt we're ever going to see the 3% loans again, all right? But 4s and 5, historically, very, very common. Right? People have operated. Hell, your grandparents operated at 11 and 12. Right? And before you say, yeah, but the houses didn't cost $400,000 back then. No, they cost less. Right? But you also didn't have all the things on top of it that make those houses more expensive. Right? And your grandfather was probably not making the amount of change that you're making right now. Right? So don't be afraid of the mortgage insurance. And remember, in this particular market, right, that's gone in a year. Right? You buy a house today, you put 3% down, which is, there are first-time home buyer programs out there at 3%. There are first-time home buyers out there at 1% if you jump through the proper hoops and everything like that. All right. So you can get into that house, and a year later at 22, 24% appreciation, you no longer have a mortgage insurance payment. You're not paying that a year later. So paying an extra $100 for 1 year, the next year that goes away and you're good to go. So that's the next bit of this. Now, this is the next one on here that I want to pull out is affording even a simple starter home. What is your definition of a starter home? Right. Have worked with buyers before in the past where their concept of a starter home is 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and there's just one person. Right. They don't have anybody on the radar that they're going to be marrying and moving in. They intend to move later on, right? But they just want them. They want the 3-2 in the pool or whatever it is. Starter homes traditionally have been for you and your spouse or just you. Right. It was not for you and a whole bunch of or your future plans or your personal office space and your craft room and everything else. Starter homes were small. They were not necessarily the house that you raised the kids in, but it was a house that you could be in through the first child. And then we got a second child, and now maybe we need that extra bedroom. Or you put the kids together in the same room until one starts being a teenager and stuff. They need their own space, right? So, first thing I'd ask you is, what's your definition of a starter home? And is a starter home, could you make your starter home look an awful lot like the apartment you're in now? Right? And that brings up condos and townhouses. Right? Condos and townhouses still appreciate, not as fast, all right, as single-family dwellings, but they still appreciate. They get you in the game, and they get you leverage so when you are ready to move up to a new house, all right, you have equity in the bank. You've gotten into the game, right? Even if it's a little 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo, 600 square feet, with a $250 HOA payment on top of it, anything like that, you're still in the game. You're still earning equity, and you're still starting that out. And I see a lot of younger people making that mistake. They want mom's house, right? They want dad's house. They want to move out to Terramar or something like that and have these big, huge stucco monstrosities. And because they can't have that, right, they just don't want to buy it all, right? Meanwhile, I will be sitting there looking at a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo, which is the perfect freaking starter place ever. The kind of opportunity I wish I had when I was in my early 20s. And I can't get anybody to look at it. It's like this one right here. This gets you started. Oh, no, I'm really going to wait the next 10 years until I get that big job promotion and I get everything saved up and I can put my 20% down and everything. And now it is 10 years later and they can't afford a house. Why? Because they missed the opportunity that was right in front of them. So, think about all these things. Now, I'm in no way, shape, or form going to say that it is not incredibly hard out there, right, if you're on a buyer side. And especially if you're a first-time home buyer, right? Because you do not get to come in swinging the big cash bags around like other buyers do, or being able to go in there and, offer an appraisal contingency clause if the appraisal comes up short. All those little things that make, that basically your parents and grandparents get to use when they're buying houses, right? But they also started 20 years ago on you, right? So if you're in that position right now, and you want to buy, and I'm going to be very specific to the gentleman who wrote on this, right? You are in the wrong freaking town, and you are in the wrong state, right? That is not a good location for you to be trying to get on board, right? And I would say the same thing to anybody in Seattle. Most of if you're anything within 15 miles of the coastline of California, forget maybe even 25 by now, just not a good place to get your home ownership and everything started. I would, and if this is something that's important to you, if like your big picture plans in your life is, I will own land, I will be landed gentry, I'm not going to be a serf for the rest of my life, you need to start looking at moving to a state that you won't be a serf in. All right, check out Tennessee. I hear it's nice. So that's the first step. Second step is continue to save, watch your credit, keep your credit down, look for first-time home buyer programs. All right, keep those in mind. Plan that thing out, right? And look at what's the minimum that you can live in comfortably. All right. Remember, comfortable is a relative term. All right. I can be comfortable in a lot less space I'm in now, and I'm not in a lot of space. But the wife couldn't. And that's why we're not living the monastic life in a 400 square foot studio apartment. All right. Look when you go out. Don't be afraid of ugly houses, especially if you don't have children, or if you're in a position where you don't have to worry about the child stepping on a rusty nail, was what I mean, or anything like that. Less desirable. Don't swing for the fences on the first one. It's okay to get a starter home. It's okay to get a house that needs some work, as long as the house is livable. 4 walls, roof, air conditioning, a hot water heater that's worked. And the hot water heater is even iffy because, hey, this is Arizona, right? And you get hot water just turning the tap on. But still, look at that. Look for neighborhoods that are up and coming or about to be up and coming. All right. Me and the wife got a smoking deal on a house, right? Because the street it was on was sort of run down. Right, and this was the nicest house on the street. We were also between the Biltmore and the downtown area, and I knew that neighborhood had the potential to take off. Or it's going to turn into city ghetto, one way or the other, right? But we gambled on it, and it went the way we wanted it to. And now we're sitting pretty, right? But we picked that neighborhood knowing full well that has, it's called gentrification. It's got a bad name to it. Right, but it does happen. So look at those neighborhoods that might be gentrified next, right? Especially because this is your starter home you're getting into that you're eventually going to build equity in, that you're going to sell to go get the house you really want, right? And as for the crash, if trying to time the crash, I can't tell you how many times I see on Reddit or 4chan or any of those other dark recesses of the internet where there's always somebody sitting there talking about how they're not playing the game and they're going to, they're not going to pay mortgage and this and that and the other thing, and yet, just make the banks happy. Well, guess what? If you're renting, you're paying somebody else's mortgage, not yours. And as for timing the crash, still, even if we had a minor correction, right? Even if we had what's considered a bad correction, right? If house prices drop 20% this month, this week, this second, goes down like the stock market, bam, 20% off the top, right? Anybody who bought over a year ago, they're still right side because the houses have gone up that much since, right? And anybody who bought, since then, slightly less of a loss, right? It'd be only the people who close today and then tomorrow, 20% immediate. They would be in trouble. And you know what happened if they stayed in the place for 5 years later, as they originally planned on doing? Right? They'd be okay. So don't let housing scare you. Don't let the mortgage insurance scare you, even though it's probably the greatest scam in all of real estate is paying mortgage insurance. All right. And don't swing for the fences on your first house. Right? These are my suggestions to you. So I hope these answer the question. I'd love to see you a reply to it either below or on the original post if you don't want to have the conversation out in the open where everybody knows who you are right now. And that's pretty much it. So, wow, we are 30 minutes into this, and I haven't even gotten to opening up the big blue book of fun and trying to figure out what the new word of the day is. Oh, we already did fee simple. What the hell? Oh, yeah, because I had a bookmark in that page. Okay. New spin. Just went to the same page. Does it this fourth time, I'm going to have a Rosencrantz and whatever effect here. Direct endorsement. A program allowing private lenders to process and endorse FHA loans. The lender must first be approved by FHA. That's actually a really good topic because, hey, a lot of first-time home buyers use FHA loans, right? They used to be 3% down. Now they were 3.5% down. A lot of the first-time home buyer programs that you need to come up with under 3% on are actually an FHA loan that is going to be wrapped up, and you will get extra benefits. There used to be a program here called Home in 5. They would credit you 5% of the purchase price. And it was sort of a credit and sort of a silent second, but that's just getting in the weeds there. But they would pay a good chunk of the 3% you need, 3.5% you needed to come down. You pay like 3%, all right, leaving you 0.5% of what you needed to purchase. All right, $500 on a $100,000 house sounds pretty good, right? 1 point of that would go to your closing costs, so you didn't have to pay the closing costs. Some of the closing costs. And the last one was actually built to buy your rate down a little bit. Home in 5 program, it was really good when you could get one through, and it was really great for first-time home buyers, and they were effectively being able to buy a house with 0.5% for the down payment and appraisals, inspections, and everything else on board. So this was something that individual lenders could do because they were lending and was qualified from the FHA to lend FHA loans. Right? So, first-time home buyers, take a look at those programs. Gentleman who just called me up that I had to take the phone call during the middle of it, first-time home buyer, talked to him like 6 years ago with him and his dad. All right, now he wants to know about the programs. They are out there. And as we can see with the numbers, there's more houses out there to choose from. So, it's still a good time to buy, still a good time to sell. It's a great day in real estate. Thank you very much for watching. You guys have a great weekend. Take care. Watch the children around the water. All right. Have a good weekend. Work your circles. And I will see you guys next week.